Welcome to a journey through Hollywood's untold scandals and secrets. Beyond the glitz and glamour lies a history of controversy, cover-ups, and mysteries that have shaped the silver screen. From iconic stars to industry moguls, join us as we uncover 25 shocking stories that Hollywood tried to bury. Number 25. Frances Farmer's story. Frances Farmer's troubles began in the early 1940s when she was arrested for drunk driving. Her behavior became increasingly erratic, leading to further arrests and negative publicity. In 1943, after a series of confrontations with studio officials, police, and her own family, Farmer was declared mentally incompetent and institutionalized. Farmer's institutionalization is where most of the controversy and allegations of abuse stem from. She was subjected to various psychiatric treatments, some of which were brutal by modern standards. Reports and later accounts from Farmer herself suggested that she underwent insulin shock therapy, electroconvulsive therapy, and possibly a lobotomy, though the lobotomy remains unconfirmed. During Farmer's time, mental illness was highly stigmatized, and studios often went to great lengths to either hide or downplay stars' mental health issues. In Farmer's case, her initial outbursts and erratic behavior were often not reported or minimized in the press. Her treatment and institutionalization reflected the harsh and often inhumane practices of the era, leaving a lasting impact on her life and career. Number 24. Patricia Douglas Case. The Patricia Douglas case is one of Hollywood's darkest and most hidden controversies, involving the assault of a young dancer during an MGM studio party in 1937. The party, heavily supplied with alcohol and held at a remote location, saw Douglas assaulted by David Ross, one of the salesmen. She was forcibly fed liquor and then attacked. Shockingly, the environment facilitated by the studio meant her cries for help went unheeded. MGM went to extraordinary lengths to suppress the story, with studio fixers working to manage the fallout, ensuring the press was kept at bay and any reports were immediately quashed. Douglas bravely went to the police, making her one of the first women to publicly accuse a man of assault in Hollywood. However, the studio manipulated the legal process, reportedly undermining her credibility and intimidating her. The aftermath was devastating for Douglas. Her career in Hollywood ended, and she lived much of her life in obscurity and pain, struggling with the trauma. Her story was largely forgotten until it was brought to light decades later by author David Sten, who documented her ordeal in a Vanity Fair article and later in his documentary, Girl 27. Number 23. Loretta Young's Secret Child. Loretta Young's secret child is one of Hollywood's most well-kept secrets, highlighting the lengths to which stars would go to protect their public image. In the early 1930s, during the filming of The Call of the Wild, Young co-starred with Clark Gable, a major star at the time. Rumors of an affair between Young and Gable emerged, resulting in Young becoming pregnant. Given the severe consequences an out-of-wedlock pregnancy would have for an actress, Young and her studio went to great lengths to keep the pregnancy a secret. Young disappeared from the public eye for a time, citing illness to hide her pregnancy. After giving birth in 1935, she placed her daughter Judy in an orphanage temporarily. Young later adopted Judy from the orphanage, presenting the situation publicly as a traditional adoption. Judy Lewis, the child, grew up without knowing the true identity of her parents. The studio played a significant role in orchestrating the concealment, aware that the truth could damage not only Young's career, but also Clark Gable's, affecting their profitability. Number 22. Errol Flynn's trial. Errol Flynn, a leading man of Hollywood's golden age, became as famous for his off-screen escapades as for his on-screen heroics. In 1943, Flynn faced a statutory rape trial, which became one of Hollywood's early major scandals. Two underage girls, Betty Hansen and Peggy Satterley, accused Flynn of unlawful intercourse. The incidents allegedly occurred at Flynn's home in Hollywood and aboard his yacht. Hansen was 17 and Satterley was 16 at the time of the alleged offenses. Warner Brothers, the studio under contract with Flynn, provided substantial support, hiring the best legal representation. Flynn's defense team worked to shape public perception, portraying him as a victim of opportunistic accusers looking to exploit his fame for financial gain. This narrative played into Flynn's playboy image, suggesting the encounters were consensual and misunderstood. Flynn was acquitted in 1943 after a highly publicized trial. His attorney, Jerry Giesler, discredited the accuser's testimonies based on their behavior and supposed motivations. The trial's outcome was influenced by the cultural and social norms of the time, which often blamed the victims in such cases and placed the burden of proof heavily on the accusers. Number 21. Roman Palansky Scandal. In 1977, Roman Palansky was arrested and charged with 5 offenses against Samantha Geimer, a 13-year-old girl. These charges included intercourse by use of drugs, perversion, sodomy, lewd and lascivious act upon a child under 14, and furnishing a controlled substance to a minor. The incident took place at Jack Nicholson's home in Los Angeles, although Nicholson was not present at the time. Palansky pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of unlawful intercourse with a minor as part of a plea bargain, which led to the dropping of the other charges. He was ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation at a state prison, where he served 42 days before his sentencing. Fearing that the judge might disregard the plea bargain and impose a much longer prison sentence, Palansky fled to France in 1978, avoiding potential imprisonment in the U.S. France, which does not extradite its citizens, has provided Palansky with safe haven since he obtained French citizenship in 1976. Despite the severity of the charges, many in Hollywood, including numerous celebrities and insiders, initially remained quiet or supportive of Palansky, focusing on his artistic contributions rather than his criminal actions. Media coverage often downplayed the moral and legal breaches involved, and over the years, various celebrities and filmmakers have argued that his artistic genius or the passage of time should mitigate the legal or ethical considerations of his actions. Number 20. Greta Garbo's lovers. Greta Garbo, one of Hollywood's most enigmatic stars, was famously private about her personal life, which included numerous relationships that she and the studios went to great lengths to keep out of the public eye. Garbo's allure as a mysterious and solitary figure was carefully crafted, and any public scrutiny into her private affairs was seen as potentially damaging to her carefully curated image. Garbo was known to have relationships with both men and women, but during her lifetime, these relationships were kept very private. Among her rumored relationships were actor John Gilbert, who she starred with in several films during the silent era, and Mercedes de Acosta, a poet and playwright known for her relationships with several famous women. Due to the conservative social norms of the time and potential public backlash, these relationships were not publicly acknowledged. MGM, the studio Garbo was under contract with, along with other Hollywood entities, was very protective of the images of their stars. Garbo's image, as a distant, mysterious figure, was marketed as part of her appeal. Any deviation from this carefully constructed public persona, including details of her personal life, was seen as potentially harmful to her box office appeal. During Garbo's heyday, Hollywood operated under the strict guidelines of the Hays Code, which dictated moral standards for films and their stars, making any hint of scandal particularly risky. Number 19. Thomas Ince's death. Thomas Ince, a pioneering film producer and director known as the father of the Western, died under mysterious circumstances in 1924. His death, after attending a weekend party aboard media mogul William Randolph Hearst's yacht, shook the industry and led to persistent rumors. The official cause of death was heart failure due to acute indigestion, but the high-profile nature of the party and guests, including actress Marion Davies, Charlie Chaplin, and columnist Luella Parsons, fueled various rumors and theories. One of the most persistent rumors was that Ince was accidentally shot by Hearst, who was supposedly aiming for Chaplin, believed to be romantically involved with Davies, Hearst's mistress. It was speculated that Hearst and others covered up the true details of Ince's death to protect their reputations. This theory was supported by alleged inconsistencies in the accounts of Ince's illness on the yacht and the events following his departure. Despite the rumors, the official cause of death remained heart failure, which some believe was due to natural causes exacerbated by Ince's known health issues. Number 18. Thelma Todd's death. Thelma Todd, a popular actress known for her roles in comedic films and her work with the Marx Brothers, died under mysterious circumstances in 1935. Her death was initially ruled accidental due to carbon monoxide poisoning, but quickly became the subject of intense media speculation and numerous conspiracy theories, prompting Hollywood to manage the narrative closely. Todd was found dead in her car inside a garage owned by her lover, Roland West. The car engine was running, leading to her death being attributed to carbon monoxide poisoning. However, the circumstances leading up to her death raised several questions. Todd had bruises on her body, suggesting a struggle or assault prior to her death, and she was last seen alive at a party the night before. Todd's relationships with Roland West and her ex-husband Pat DeSico were reportedly strained, adding to the speculation of foul play. The Hollywood community and studios involved were quick to react, given Todd's popularity. They influenced media coverage to focus on her life and career rather than the mysterious and potentially controversial details of her death. At the time of her death, Todd was involved in several film projects, giving studios a vested interest in protecting these investments and Hollywood's reputation. Number 17, Clara Bs Affairs. Clara Bow, famously known as the it girl of the Roaring Twenties, was one of Hollywood's first sex symbols and a leading figure in the silent film era. Her vivacious personality and on-screen charisma made her an icon, but her personal life was fraught with scandal, much of which Hollywood tried to keep under wraps. Bow's personal life was a magnet for scandal in the booming tabloid industry. The most damaging rumors included numerous affairs, some allegedly with high-profile celebrities, and even the entire USC football team. These stories were likely exaggerated by the press. Paramount Pictures, the studio Bow worked under, went to great lengths to protect her image and their investment, hiring publicists to craft a more wholesome image and attempting to suppress negative stories. Studios often provided exclusive stories and access in exchange for favorable coverage or the suppression of unsavory details about their stars. At times, they even resorted to legal action to keep private details from becoming public. Number 16. Paul Bern's death. Paul Bern's death remains one of Hollywood's most enduring scandals. Just 2 months after marrying Jean Harlow on September 5, 1932, Bern was found dead at their Beverly Hills home from a gunshot wound to the head. A note beside his body suggested suicide. "Dearest dear, unfortunately, this is the only way to make good the frightful wrong I have done you, and to wipe out my abject humiliation. I love you." The death was sensationalized in the press, but MGM moved quickly to control the narrative. MGM executives, including studio head Louis B. Mayer, were among the first to arrive at the scene. It was widely reported that evidence might have been tampered with or removed before police arrived. As a major star, Harlow's public image was crucial to MGM. The studio orchestrated a publicity campaign to protect her from any negative association with Bern's death, emphasizing her grief and shock and keeping her away from the press. Speculations ranged from murder by a former lover to foul play related to Byron's financial dealings or personal conflicts. However, MGM's efforts largely succeeded in shaping public perception. Number 15, the death of Natalie Wood. In 1981, actress Natalie Wood drowned during a weekend boat trip to Santa Catalina Island on the yacht Splendor. Also on board were her husband, Robert Wagner, actor Christopher Walken, and the boat's captain, Dennis Davern. The initial report to authorities claimed Wood accidentally fell into the water and drowned. However, subsequent investigations have cast doubt on this narrative. Reports of a heated argument between Wagner and Wood and differing statements about when Wood was noticed missing raised suspicions. The autopsy report noted bruises on Wood's body and arms, and an abrasion on her left cheek, though it was unclear if these occurred before her death or as she struggled in the water. Wood was reportedly not a strong swimmer, raising questions about how she ended up in the water without a life jacket. After the initial investigation, friends, family, and fans were left with many questions due to the lack of a thorough investigation and conflicting accounts. In 2011, the case was reopened after Dennis Davern publicly stated he had lied during the initial investigation and that a fight between Wagner and Wood had occurred the night she disappeared. Number 14, Walt Disney and the Nazis. Walt Disney's meeting with Leni Riefenstahl in 1938 is a striking example of Hollywood's complicated relationship with politics and public perception. Riefenstahl was a German film director, best known for her work in Nazi propaganda films, including Triumph of the Will. She visited Hollywood shortly after the infamous Night of Broken Glass, a massive, coordinated attack on Jews throughout Nazi Germany. During her visit, Riefenstahl met with several filmmakers and studio heads, including Walt Disney. Disney reportedly gave her a tour of his studio, an action that drew much disapproval. Many prominent figures in the industry, including a significant number of Jewish executives and creatives, refused to meet with her because of her Nazi associations. Disney's decision to meet with Riefenstahl was not widely publicized at the time and remained relatively obscure until well after World War II. Hollywood did its best to hide the meeting because, although the United States had not yet entered World War II, awareness and opposition to Nazi ideologies were growing. Hollywood, heavily influenced by Jewish talent, was particularly sensitive to any associations with Nazi sympathizers. Disney, as a leading figure in American entertainment, was especially cautious about his public image. Number 13. Marilyn Monroe's death. Marilyn Monroe's death in 1962 remains one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. Officially ruled a probable suicide due to an overdose of barbiturates, her demise has fueled endless theories and speculations, ranging from accidental overdose to outright murder. Monroe was found dead in her Los Angeles home on August 5, 1962. She was discovered lying nude on her bed, face down, with a telephone in one hand. Empty bottles of pills prescribed for her depression were found beside her. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office concluded her death was caused by a self-administered overdose of sedative drugs and deemed it a probable suicide. However, rumors about the Kennedys' involvement persist. Some believe Monroe was romantically involved with John F. Kennedy or Robert Kennedy, and that her knowledge of sensitive political information led to her silencing. Others claim the mafia killed her to discredit the Kennedys. There's also speculation that those close to Monroe might have covered up the true circumstances of her death to protect themselves or high-profile individuals. Hollywood, keen on maintaining a sanitized image, was eager to shape the narrative about her death. Yet none of these efforts worked. Decades later, Marilyn Monroe remains a subject of immense interest, with her life and death still analyzed and discussed. Number 12. Olivia de Havilland versus Warner Brothers. Olivia de Havilland's lawsuit against Warner Brothers in the 1940s was a landmark case that challenged the studio system. De Havilland had grown increasingly frustrated with the restrictive terms of her contract, which allowed Warner Brothers to extend her 7-year agreement for periods of suspension. The studio's control over her career was stifling, and she often felt typecast in roles she found unsatisfactory. Her legal victory, known as the de Havilland Law, stipulated that an employer could not enforce a personal service contract beyond 7 years, even if the actor had been suspended for periods within that time. This weakened the studio system and gave actors greater freedom and bargaining power. Hollywood initially tried to suppress the lawsuit due to its potential implications, fearing that a victory for de Havilland would inspire other actors to challenge their contracts. However, de Havilland's victory led to significant changes in the industry, empowering actors to negotiate better terms and assert more control over their careers. The ruling set a precedent that significantly weakened the studio's control over its stars and led to greater artistic and professional freedom for actors. Number 11. Elizabeth Taylor's multiple marriages. Elizabeth Taylor was equally famous for her multiple marriages as for her cinematic achievements. Married 8 times to 7 different men, her relationships often overshadowed her career. Her first marriage, to hotel heir Nicky Hilton, ended in less than a year due to his abusive behavior. Her second marriage, to actor Michael Wilding, produced 2 sons but ended in divorce after 5 years. Her third husband, producer Mike Todd, died in a plane crash, leaving her devastated. Soon after, Taylor's affair with Eddie Fisher, who was then married to her close friend Debbie Reynolds, became one of Hollywood's biggest scandals. Fisher divorced Reynolds to marry Taylor, which led to significant public backlash. Taylor's marriages to Richard Burton were marked by high-profile extravagance and turbulence, including a highly publicized affair during the filming of Cleopatra. Hollywood studios sought to minimize negative press and promote her films instead of her personal life. Despite the PR efforts, Taylor's marriages, especially her affair with Eddie Fisher and multiple marriages to Richard Burton, were highly publicized and scandalous at the time. Taylor's personal life often overshadowed her professional achievements, but her undeniable talent and resilience allowed her to maintain a successful career despite the controversies. Number 10. The death of George Reeves. The mysterious death of George Reeves, best known for his role as Superman, has puzzled fans for decades. Reeves died from a gunshot wound in 1959, and the circumstances surrounding his death led to numerous theory-emotional distress. Hollywood studios and publicists tried to downplay the mysterious ACs and speculations. Officially ruled a suicide, questions remain about the lack of fingerprints on the gun, the position of the body, and conflicting testimonies from party guests who were in his home at the time. Reeves had been struggling with his career and personal life. His typecasting as Superman limited his acting opportunities, leading to financial impacts of his death to protect the wholesome image associated with Superman. However, over time, alternative theories have emerged, including suggestions of accidental shooting, murder, or involvement of Reeves's fiancée, Leonore Lemon, and even ties to organized crime. The conflicting accounts and lack of conclusive evidence have kept the mystery alive, making Reeves's death one of Hollywood's enduring enigmas. Number 9. Bette Davis and Joan Crawford's feud. The legendary feud between Bette Davis and Joan Crawford was one of Hollywood's most notorious rivalries. It began in the early 1930s and lasted for decades, fueled by professional competition and personal animosities. Their animosity reached its peak during the filming of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1962, where on-set incidents and media reports magnified their hatred for each other. Both actresses were known for their strong personalities and intense acting styles, which only heightened the tension between them. Hollywood initially attempted to keep the feud under wraps, fearing it would detract from the public's perception of the actresses in their films. Publicists often downplayed the conflict, framing it as mere professional rivalry rather than deep-seated animosity. However, the feud eventually became a central part of their public personas, often used to promote their films. Media coverage of their rivalry included reports of on-set sabotage, cutting remarks, and even physical altercations. Despite the negative press, the feud kept both actresses in the public eye and arguably prolonged their careers. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane became a box office success partly due to the public's fascination with their off-screen animosity. The feud, though detrimental to their personal lives, became a significant aspect of their legacies in Hollywood history. Number 8. Gloria Graham marries her stepson. Gloria Graham's marriage to her former stepson, Anthony Ray, was one of Hollywood's more sensational scandals. In 1962, it was revealed that Graham had married Ray, the son of her former husband, director Nicholas Ray. The relationship reportedly began under scandalous circumstances. Nicholas Ray had allegedly discovered a young Anthony in bed with Graham, which began the end of their marriage. Years later, Graham and Anthony Ray reconnected and eventually married in 1960. The fact that he had been her stepson added a layer of taboo and contributed to the shock value. Hollywood tried to minimize media coverage of her marriage to Anthony Ray and focus public attention on her professional endeavors instead. Despite these efforts, the marriage did not remain secret for long. When the press discovered the relationship, it led to public outrage and damaged Graham's reputation. The marriage lasted for 14 years, ending in 1974, but the scandal had lasting effects on Graham's career and public image. Despite the controversy, Graham continued to work in film and theater, although her career never fully recovered from the scandal. Number 7. Hedy Lamars' shoplifting charges. Hedy Lamar, once heralded as the most beautiful woman in the world, faced multiple shoplifting charges later in her life. Despite her achievements as a major Hollywood star and pioneering inventor, Lamar was arrested several times for shoplifting during the 1960s. The first notable incident occurred in Los Angeles, where she was accused of stealing $86 worth of goods from a department store. Subsequent arrests followed over the years for similar charges, Each case brought her negative publicity, which was starkly at odds with the glamorous and controlled image she had maintained during her film career. In Lamar's case, the industry attempted to minimize media coverage of her arrests. This approach was typical of how Hollywood dealt with the personal failings of its stars, especially those who had been pivotal to its success in earlier decades. The efforts to hide her shoplifting charges were also an attempt to preserve the mystique associated with her cinematic and intellectual legacy. Lamar's status as a revered actress and an accomplished inventor made her personal missteps inconsistent with the public and professional persona that had been constructed around her. Despite these incidents, Lamar's legacy as a pioneering inventor and actress remained significant, highlighting her contributions beyond her troubled later years. Number 6. Lana Turner and Johnny Stompanato. The relationship between Lana Turner and Johnny Stompanato was marked by volatility and violence. In 1958, during a heated argument at Turner's Beverly Hills home, Stompanato was stabbed to death by Turner's 14-year-old daughter, Cheryl Crane, who claimed she was defending her mother from Stompanato's violent threats. Hollywood's power structures immediately mobilized to control the narrative, framing the incident as a tragic but necessary act of self-defense. The press was intense and invasive, often speculating wildly about the circumstances of the death and Turner's role in it. Hollywood publicists worked diligently to frame the story as a tragic but necessary act of self-defense, emphasizing Crane's role in protecting her mother. Turner's testimony during the inquest painted her as a victim of domestic abuse, who was tragically involved in a scandal through no fault of her own. The killing was later ruled a justifiable homicide, but the incident left a permanent mark on Turner's public image. Despite the scandal, Turner managed to continue her career, though she never fully escaped the shadow of the tragic event. Number 5. Ingrid Bergman's affair. Ingrid Bergman's affair with director Roberto Rossellini in the late 1940s became a massive scandal. While still married to her first husband, Peter Lindstrom, Bergman began a relationship with Rossellini, who was also married. The affair began when Bergman wrote to Rossellini expressing admiration for his work and indicating her interest in working with him. This correspondence led to her casting in his film Stromboli, during which the relationship began. The affair became public when Bergman became pregnant with Rossellini's child. Hollywood and the media initially tried to suppress the news to protect her wholesome image and the commercial interests of her films. But when the affair and pregnancy could no longer be hidden, the backlash was severe. Bergman was denounced on the floor of the U.S. Senate and essentially blacklisted in Hollywood. She did not appear in another American film for about 7 years until her successful comeback in Anastasia, for which she won her second Academy Award. Despite the scandal, Bergman's career continued to flourish in Europe, and she eventually regained her status as a beloved actress in the United States, proving her resilience and talent. Number 4. Judy Garland's mistreatment. Judy Garland, signed to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer at just 13, quickly became one of Hollywood's most famous faces. From the start, she was subjected to extreme pressures regarding her appearance, weight, and performance. MGM controlled every aspect of her life, including her diet and medication, to maintain her energy and keep her working long hours. Studio doctors prescribed her amphetamines to keep her awake and barbiturates to help her sleep. Garland's schedule was grueling. As a young actress, she was expected to work long hours, often through illness and exhaustion. The studio system prioritized production schedules over the well-being of its stars, and the studio's public relations machinery crafted a public persona for Garland that contradicted the reality of her situation. They presented her as a happy, carefree star, which was far from the truth. Garland's personal struggles with addiction and mental health were largely hidden from the public until much later in her life. Despite her incredible talent and success, Garland's life was marked by a series of personal crises, failed marriages, and battles with addiction, which ultimately led to her tragic death at the age of 47. Number 3. The Black Dalia murder. The murder of Elizabeth Short, known as the Black Dalia, is one of Hollywood's most infamous unsolved mysteries. In January 1947, Short's mutilated and bisected body was found in a vacant lot in Los Angeles. Her connections to the Hollywood social scene fueled intense media interest and speculation about her relationships with influential men in the industry. Despite extensive investigations, no one was ever charged, and the case remains one of Los Angeles's most famous cold cases. Hollywood studios, wary of any scandal that could tarnish their glamorous image, tried to downplay their connections to the case. The press seized on the murder, often exaggerating details and creating outrageous headlines that sold newspapers, but did little to aid the investigation. Over the years, numerous theories have been proposed, including some that implicate doctors, businessmen, and Hollywood figures, adding to the mystery and intrigue surrounding the case. Number 2. Fatty Arbuckle's trials. The scandal surrounding Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle is one of Hollywood's first major scandals. Over Labor Day weekend in 1921, Arbuckle hosted a party in a San Francisco hotel where actress Virginia Rappe became fatally ill and died 4 days later due to peritonitis caused by a ruptured bladder. Arbuckle was accused of assaulting Rappe, which allegedly led to her injuries. He faced 3 trials between 1921 and 1922. The first 2 resulted in hung juries, while the third ended in an acquittal with a formal apology from the jury. Despite his acquittal, the damage to Arbuckle's public image was irreversible. At the time of Arbuckle's trials, Hollywood was still in its formative years, and the scandal prompted the industry to implement what would become known as the Hays Code, a set of moral guidelines for the production of films. Although not fully enforced until 1934, the groundwork began in the early 1920s as a direct result of scandals like Arbuckle's. The press vilified Arbuckle, painting him as a villain despite the lack of conclusive evidence. His career never recovered, and he struggled with personal and professional setbacks until his death in 1933. Number 1. Charlie Chaplin's relationships. Charlie Chaplin, one of Hollywood's most iconic figures, was involved in several relationships with young actresses, which Hollywood tried to keep hidden to avoid scandal and backlash. As Chaplin's fame and influence grew, so did his controversial romantic involvements. His first high-profile romance was with Edna Purviance, who was 19 when she met the 26-year-old Chaplin. Though not scandalous by today's standards, it set the stage for more controversial relationships. Chaplin married Mildred Harris when she was just 16, and he was 29, leading to a troubled marriage that ended in a messy divorce. Later, he married Lita Grey in haste after getting her pregnant. This marriage also ended in a highly publicized and scandalous divorce, with accusations of inappropriate behavior and lurid details about Chaplin's demands and actions. His most enduring relationship was with Una O'Neill, whom he married when he was 54 and she was 18. Despite the significant age gap, this marriage lasted until Chaplin's death and was seen as a stable partnership. Despite Hollywood's efforts to suppress these stories, Chaplin's personal life became a feast for the press, particularly during his divorces. The public was fascinated by his charisma on screen, but equally captivated by his tumultuous personal life, which starkly contrasted with the lovable characters he portrayed. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of Hollywood's hidden scandals. These stories offer a glimpse into the complex tapestry of fame, power, and secrecy that defines Tinseltown. Stay tuned for more insights into the captivating world of cinema's untold tales. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more intriguing stories from the annals of Hollywood history.